Welcome to Human Powered, the podcast about creating a high-performing agency or consultancy business. I'm Trenton Moss, leadership coach, exited agency founder, and author of the book Human Powered. And on my podcast, my guests spill their secrets about how they've created high-performing teams and how this has translated into running a high-performing business. And today I have Nikki Gatenby, Non-Exec Director and bestselling author. Nikki, hello.
Hey, Trenton, how are you?
Thank you so much for joining today. So, Nikki, you've got 25 years agency experience, including 10 years running the agency Propellernet. But nowadays, you're a non-exec and cognitive behavioural coach to agency leaders, and you've been doing that for around 5 years. Yeah. And you're also the best-selling author of 2 books, Super Engaged and Bebop, Better Business on Purpose. So let's dive straight in. Nikki, how do you get a business to be high-performing?
I think it's around your vision and how you articulate that vision for people so they can see the future that they're buying into, and then how that connects to what they do every day. And one of my favourite kind of visions of the future is the New Zealand All Blacks. You've probably heard this before. Their whole mantra is to leave the jersey in a better place. What a lovely way of summing up to do good for the business, the sporting team, do good. It's so visual, and every player needs to play their part in that team to leave the jersey in a better place. So what version of that can we have for our teams, our agencies, our businesses, so that we can all see where we're going? And I think it's really important to connect the commercials and the vision and have some really simple numbers that people can align to, because not everyone's happy to read it through a P&L or want to be in spreadsheet joy. So what can we do to interpret our vision and our commercials into numbers that mean something for people? This comes from when I worked with Nissan many moons ago, and Carlos Ghosn bought Nissan for $1. It was about to go bust, and he took on all the debt, and he put in place the Nissan 180 plan, which was the Nissan turnaround plan in 5 years. They wanted to change the business in its entirety. And the 1, the 8 and the 0 all meant something. 1 million car sales, 8% profit and 0 debt. And everybody who touched the business, everybody who was involved in it, from head office, dealerships, partners, suppliers, agencies, had to align to those numbers to ensure that the work they were doing was going to help hit the turnaround plan targets. Now, the business turned around in 3 years, not 5, and Nissan is one of the most innovative car companies on the planet. They actually beat Tesla to produce the first mass market electric vehicle. And that was quite impressive to me and many others. It might not be all about those numbers, but it had a big part to play. So I took that idea and slightly less elegantly put it into the agencies I've been working with. So with Propellernet, we had some numbers: 100, 90, 80, 70, 60, and everybody in the business knew what they stood for. I was regularly asking team meetings, what does the 100 to 60 actually mean? And then back then, 15 years ago, 100K revenue per person, 90% team and client engagement, 80% client retention, 70% utilisation, and 60 precious seats. We introduced later 50% net profit, so the numbers still work together. But it was a really simple way of condensing the bigger vision, because we knew if these numbers were hit, we would get to a really good, profitable place with the business, keep throwing off enough cash to reinvest in what we wanted to do. So in terms of a high-performing team, it's making the vision clear. It was all about making life better at Propellernet, and how we can simplify how we get there, with each person knowing the part they have to play, back to the New Zealand All Blacks and leaving the jersey in a better place.
I love that. So for you, the big thing is having that vision, knowing where you're heading towards, what success looks like to you, and then making sure you articulate that in a way that resonates with the team and that they can understand.
Yes, and I've often worked with leaders and agencies, and they're kind of hoping that people will get it. And I have this mantra, the people I work with know this: hope is not a strategy. It really isn't. Hope is not going to get us there. You know, it can feel good. We're hoping it's okay, but let's make it more action-oriented, much more proactive. And I've put these plans in place in many businesses, and they're all the different numbers mean different things to different people. We've had the 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, similar to 100, 9 to 60, the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 75, 20, 65, 20. It doesn't matter really what those numbers are, so long as they mean something to you and they can be interpreted into your team and the actions and what's rewarded in the business.
You started off by talking about the All Blacks and how they align everyone around that shared vision. As well as using a number system to make it memorable, what are other tactics to make sure your team fully understands that vision and are all aligned around it?
Well, the vision is where you're headed, and your values are going to help you get there. So being really clear with what you value in the business. It's just talked about quite a lot, and some people go, oh, values. If values are stuck in a drawer on a PowerPoint slide, or they only happen at recruitment, or maybe they're missed completely at recruitment, they won't actually mean anything, and they're not going to help you get towards your vision. But if they mean something and they help you articulate why you want to get somewhere and how you're going to get somewhere, it's a completely different kind of fish. So one of our values was adventure at Propellernet, and I used to ask people in interviews, tell me about your adventurous side, show me your sense of adventure, because this is quite a high challenge environment. And if you don't have a good attitude to risk, it may not be the place for you. And some people are like, oh my God, that sounds brilliant. Yeah, this is how adventurous I am. This is how I want to take risks. Others will be like, oh, that doesn't sound right for me. And we know really early on if we were aligned. And those values would live throughout the business. Another value was wellbeing. And we actively lived wellbeing in everything we did and said to make sure that people were feeling good and be able to do great work rather than burning out. So 4 questions. Have you taken your holiday? Because we know people are taking time out is essential. Are you using the health cash plan? Because we don't know what you're using it for. We want to know you're taking care of yourself. Are you using your Propel days? We would offer a day a month to people to go and propel themselves forward. Didn't necessarily need to know what they were doing, but wanted to know the impact it was going to have back on the business. So go off on a mini adventure and learn something new and bring it back to the business. And were they taking advantage of the coaching that was on offer in the business? And those conversations started off from a wellbeing perspective, but they often went into other areas that maybe if they hadn't been a point of conversation, people wouldn't have felt comfortable to talk about, because our wellbeing is so important. We're not robots yet. We need to keep the human side of us alive. And if our values are around being well, then let's make sure we actively operate with that and we make it part of how we work in the business. So the vision is where you're going, the values are going to help you get there, and make sure both of them live.
So hope is not a strategy, but rather you have a strong vision and you articulate down to the business in a way that's coherent and understandable. And then your values, you lean on those day in, day out. And that's how you unite the team and get yourself moving towards that vision aligned.
And it doesn't have to be complicated. It really doesn't. But it does need to be repeated. It takes a long time for something to become a habit and for us to make sure that it's part of our vernacular and it's the language we use within the business. So think about, people listening, what is the vernacular in your business? What words come up? What values are talked about? What behaviours are aligned to those values that are celebrated and what aren't?
Yeah, it's about continually reinforcing, isn't it? There's something called the mere exposure effect. So it basically says that in order for a message to get through, in order for us to get used to an idea, we need to be exposed to it 10 to 20 times. Mm-hmm. So you're absolutely right about repeating that message. And even though you as a leader might get a little bit bored of saying the same thing again and again and again. Well, I've said it once. They don't need me to keep saying it. They do.
You're absolutely right. Repetition is part of our jobs, because we may be saying it many times, but it may be to lots of different audiences. And the people we want it to land well with may only hear it once or twice a year. That's not going to work. As you say, 10 to 20, it's got to be every week.
I like that. Repetition is part of the job. So if you're the person running the business, repetition is one of those key things you need to be doing. And Nikki, you obviously spend your days now coaching leaders, supporting them, advising them. How do you enable them to be the best versions of themselves?
Well, this is fascinating. And this comes from the cognitive behavioural coaching that I do, because cognition, how we think, dramatically impacts how we feel. So cognitive behavioural thinking, feeling. And the way we think impacts how we feel, our levels of stress and our performance. And if we can change how we think, we can change how we feel. We can change our levels of stress and we can change our performance. And what's wonderful about that is nothing else in the world needs to change. So a lot of what I do with people, and I'm trained in this approach, is to help them with how they're thinking. And to help with how you're thinking, you kind of need to know yourself really well. And a lot of us have done work on ourselves. A lot of us have done some of the things I'm going to talk about now. But it's that collective view of understanding yourself better can be so powerful to reach high performance. And if you understand yourself better, it's how much you're willing to share that with others so they can understand you too. So I work with people on their own personal vision, how they pitch themselves, how they talk about themselves. It does make me giggle. When we pitch as agencies, we often, get into the room with clients or on a Zoom call and we ask to introduce ourselves and we say our name, our job title and how long we've been at the agency. Really dull. It's not going to give the client any whiz-bang stuff that they want to go, I want to ask some more questions here. So how do we pitch ourselves? So clients go, oh my God, I really need to find out more. And I work on that with people so they're really confident in how they're pitching. Their own personal values, what do they value? And what behaviours does that make them perform and they value in others? Their strengths, the true essence of them and how they operate, and they're saboteurs. And this is the one that most people haven't come across. And Trenton, you and I know this one well. We've gone through the work together. But it's how we all self-sabotage. Everybody self-sabotages. It comes from childhood. It helps us to protect ourselves. But it's not that useful in adulthood. And most of us don't even know it's happening. But if we can understand how we self-sabotage, we don't need to go back and regress into childhood to understand it all. We just need to think about the future. But we can then stop that self-sabotage, change how we're thinking, have an incredible impact on how we're feeling to be much more positive, much more action-oriented, and get us out of a rut. And we can move forward in a way that's much healthier for us and others. Also, a working style analysis. There's a brilliant book called Surrounded by Idiots, where we all think everybody else is doing things that are crazy because we wouldn't do those. But it's because we see the world through different eyes. And if we can understand ourselves, and this is a lot of the work I do with people, our own vision, how we pitch ourselves, our values, the behaviours that inspires, our strengths and saboteurs, and our working styles, that is a whole plethora of insight that we've got around ourselves. I've asked people to help put together a manifesto to say, right, this is me. This is how I operate. This is what's good, and this is what I want to change. And the work on saboteurs can be game-changing for people. It was for me. It's why I realised that I've burnt out twice. I used to blame others for that. Lots of people are very happy to let you stand back and work very hard, but I was the one driving me, working very hard. And now I've got the tools and equipment to go, I don't need to do that anymore. I can stop, because there's a whole range of saboteurs. We all have a judge in us, but there are 9 others. And my key saboteur is hyperachiever, achieve to be seen. And I don't need to do that anymore. I don't need to overachieve constantly, because what it actually means is I'll burn out. And now I know that I can see it coming and I can stop. And I've worked with so many leaders on this, and there's a whole range of saboteurs, and it doesn't mean we're bad. We are not our saboteur. It's behaviour that we've used to help us get through life, but we can change it now. And it's wonderful when someone goes, oh my God, I can see why I've been doing X, Y, Z now. I don't need to do that anymore. I haven't told them that. They've worked it out for themselves. We've used the saboteur as a springboard, and it literally can be game-changing for people. And they just feel so much better. Stress goes down, performance goes up. It's brilliant.
You talked a bit about one of your saboteurs, the hyperachiever saboteur, that I guess beats you up to tell you need to achieve more, Nikki. This isn't enough. This isn't enough. This isn't enough. Can you share a bit about some of the other saboteurs, perhaps the ones that you see as being the most common amongst business leaders?
Restless controllers are big in leadership. The restlessness comes from you wanting to make sure that you cover every single plate that you're spinning, and you don't really focus. The unfortunate side of that is you think it's a superpower because you're multitasking, you're making everything happen, but actually you're not present. You're not in the room in that moment in time. You're not in the room. You're not listening as well as you could. And you're probably missing a lot by trying to achieve too much. And that can be your downfall. And when you see that restless behaviour, I can see it in leaders when I first start working with them, and they're off and their phone's going and they're and I'm like, whoa. There's this like cortisol overload happening. How can this person be feeling great in what they're doing? They're probably slightly addicted to that behaviour because it's what they've been practicing for years, and we get better at what we practice. It's hard to change our practice. It's a bit like changing the grip on a tennis racket. It's a hard thing to do because we've been doing one way for so many years. Trying to do something different is actually difficult, but my God, the results are impressive. And when I speak to leaders who are, they are mostly forced into the restlessness behaviour, they feel more calm once we've noticed it, once we've spotted that, and they can see it coming and they can choose to act differently. That's what this is all about. You can see your saboteur behaviour coming, and you can choose to act differently. Reduce your stress, increase your performance, because that's really what we're all going for. But we're using negative behaviour to get us there. If we can change it into positive behaviour, results are completely different. Controllers are the other one. I mean, hyperachiever restless controllers are really big in leaders, and the controllers try and control everyone and everything. And the opposite can happen. People don't want to be controlled. They want to have their own agency. They want to have their own ability to make decisions. We want to make sure we're employing talented people, and talented people have choices. Talented people do not want to turn up and be told what to do. So if you're a controller and that's your key saboteur, you're probably devaluing a lot of the people in your business and making engagement a bit of a problem. So it's a hard lesson going through saboteur work, but it's really valuable. It's often the hard stuff that is valuable. And I see it time and time again. And if people are open to understanding what they may be doing, taking responsibility for it, see it coming and changing it, again, the mantra, they can reduce their stress and increase their performance. And it's brilliant to see.
So it sounds like what you're doing is you're helping people to identify, I guess, their true self, the true leader, by identifying their strengths, their values, their working styles. And you're encouraging them to lean on those as much as possible. And your saboteur it's almost taking that too far and giving you negative messaging to create levels of stress and reduce your performance.
Yes, the saboteur will lie to you. It helps you do more of the thing that's destructive for you because it's telling you it's doing you good. So me hyperachieving, I burnt out twice. First time I came off a motorbike because I wasn't concentrating properly. A second time I hadn't had a day off in 9 months and I woke up and I wasn't able to move. And I don't want that to happen to anybody else. It was ridiculous. Now I have a close down procedure. I leave things on my to-do list for the next day. I actively stop and I will walk away. What I realised, and the thing that made me understand this really well, was if you are a hyperachiever or you have that tendency, you can tend to burn other people. And that horrified me. It wasn't only me that was in trouble here. I could push other people way too far, and that's not a good thing to be doing at all.
What might the saboteur be saying to them in their heads so that people listening are able to identify that saboteur?
So the lie of the hyperachiever is if you overachieve, you'll be recognised and it's good. Whereas it is a lie, because if you push yourself so hard, you'll be unable to overachieve because you'll be ill, and that won't be good. The lie of the restless is you need to be looking in all these different places so that you've got your eye on the ball everywhere. We're human. You cannot have your eye on the ball everywhere. So the opposite is true. You'll end up dropping balls, dropping plates, and things will start crashing around you. The lie of the controller is you have to control everything for it to be right. You are not right in every scenario that you are faced with. You're particularly not right about how other people think and feel. So you're going to end up damaging relationships. And there's another quite prominent saboteur in agency life, because we are people pleasers, and it's the pleaser. And if you try and please everyone, the lie of the pleaser is you'll make everyone feel good. It's not true, because actually people won't trust you if all you ever do is please and placate and please. People need to hear hard news as well as pleasing news for them to believe that you're authentic. So every single saboteur has a dark side and a lie going with it, that if it's really pushing you in your behaviour, you're going to end up in trouble. And that's where most of the problems start. Once we can unpick it, the joy of this is once you know that, you can stop it happening. You can see it coming and you can choose to do something different.
So rather than being controlled by the saboteur, you can choose what to do.
Absolutely.
That's very powerful stuff. We've been talking about how you work with business leaders to help them understand themselves. What about everyone else in a leadership position? How do you get everyone to be the best version of themselves?
I think it's a lot about using the work we do with leaders and helping other people understand that they can do that too. What are your personal values? What is your working style? I've done a number of working style sessions with groups of people where they understand they all operate slightly differently. And some of the penny dropping moments are brilliant, where people are like, oh my God, I didn't realise that other people didn't see the world the same way that I do. It's like, yeah, it's quite fascinating, isn't it? And Surrounded by Idiots is a brilliant book based on the colour 4 codes of red, blue, yellow, green, in terms of how you're driven or how you express yourself or how you're amiable or how you're analytical in your preferred approach to working. And everyone has various elements of all of those in them, but we just have a preferred style. So if you're a very driven person, you operate very differently to a very expressive person, operates differently to a very amiable, operates very differently to very analytical. But we have mixes of those. But once you understand that concept, and it's not personality profiling, it's not that at all. It's just understanding how people like to work in different ways. You can have appreciation of yourself, but also what works for others. And we're in a world where negotiation is so important and understanding is so important, and realising what's going on for someone else is so important, not just cutting through everything that we want to do, and having that to use the words growth mindset. And there was a brilliant piece in the book written by Satya Nadella, who is the CEO of Microsoft. And he has a son who has or did have a son who has cerebral palsy, and he wants to make the world more accessible. And he talked about the fact that we cannot possibly know it all. We cannot be know-it-alls. We need to be learn-it-all, because there is, we can't be know-it-alls. There's too much to know. We need to be learn-it-alls, because that's how we grow. And I have a huge empathy with that, because we need to understand more about ourselves and understand more about each other to grow and have a better business together. And the high performance comes out of all the things around vision and commercials and numbers, but what do I understand about me and how can I work on me? And I'm not just a set piece that's carved out of stone and never changes. No, we evolve all the time.
So I think what you're saying is, as leaders, we need to deepen that understanding of self, raise that self-awareness about, our values, our working styles, our strengths. Also learn about our saboteurs. So when we're being driven perhaps in a direction that maybe we think is right for us, but has negative consequences. But then also, we all need to learn about each other and accept each other's ways of being and ways of working.
Yes. And, we chose to work in businesses where there's teams. We chose this future. We chose to be with others. So let's make sure we have an understanding of each other. I think it's really difficult when there's a closed mindset in operation. It's like, no, I'm not going to change. I don't want anything else to change, or everyone else has to change around me. Because if no one wants to change, change won't happen. But as we know, change is constant. So how are we going to work in that environment? We need to be more open and more porous to it.
Okay, so as leaders, we need to set a clear vision and we need to articulate that to everyone in the business. We need to live by our values and make sure people are doing those day in, day out. We need to gain understanding of ourselves and understanding of all the people around us. Wow, so much to do. Is there anything else that as a business leader we need to do to create those high-performing teams?
This is a biggie, and I think we need to really focus on being kind rather than nice. I have this conversation a lot. If I've got spinach in my teeth, I want someone to be kind and tell me. I don't want to look like a loon with spinach in my teeth. I don't want someone to be nice and not say anything because that's the easy thing to do. And that happens a lot in business. We're too nice to have the hard conversation, which will solve a lot of problems going down the line. We need to be kind and grasp things that are difficult and sort those out before they become a problem later. And I've seen it time and time again. I mean, pitches are classic examples of this, where people are nice, okay, it's all going to be fine. You get in front of the client and it's not, it's gone wrong. And the client's then gone, that's not good enough. How awful to have put all that work in and no one's been kind enough to say it's not good enough. We need to embrace the feedback that's helping us to get better. And there's this really interesting thing about feedback, isn't there, Trent? In terms of a lot of people are quite fearful of feedback, and I understand it. They've been in a difficult situation where it's been feedback given at them, and they've been expected to take it. And it's like, whoa! I believe feedback should be shared. Observe what you see and seek to learn. Say what you saw and seek to learn more. It's about a learned experience together and understanding why things have happened, rather than an accusation expecting someone to change. So if we can get better at feedback, and we can get better at taking it on as well as sharing it and role modelling, asking for feedback, we'll have a much better communication cycle and we can get to being kind rather than nice. I need us all to have a lot more spinach conversations. Please let each other know if something isn't right. Tell me if I'm going to make myself look like a fool. I don't want to do that. I want to know what's wrong. And it's the kind, grown-up, high-performing teams that have the ability to say to each other when things aren't working. And it not to be taken personally, but like, okay, this is for the good of the work that we're doing and we can make it better together collectively. So kind and nice is a biggie. Also, going backwards as well as forwards. So doing retrospectives as well as planning in the future. We seem to launch ourselves forwards all the time in agencies. In June, we're planning Christmas and we seem to go forward always. How about going back and seeing what we learned? And retrospectives are great in terms of asking 4 questions on any project or anything that needs some attention. What did we learn as a team? What went well? What do we do differently? And what still puzzles us? And those 4 questions can really help us understand what's going on and solve those things. Share what we've learned, do more of what went well, change what we would do differently, and work out the answer to what's puzzling us. And if we don't stop and go back sometimes, we're going to miss all that brilliant learning. And I think that's a big issue in a lot of agencies. We're running so fast to keep up. We don't slow down to learn more.
So I think there are 2 key points you're making there. The first one about just stopping sometimes and doing a retrospective and looking at how we can learn. And the other one you're talking about is about kindness. And I think what you're saying is it is unkind not to help people to develop and get better.
Absolutely. But ideally, it's not done in an accusatory way. It's not done a you are wrong. It's I see this happening. Tell me more.
Yeah, so it is kind to help people to improve, and it is kind to help them get better. And too many leaders are driven by, as you talked about earlier, their pleaser saboteur, which means that instead of being kind, they're being nice.
Mm-hmm.
And being nice is avoiding what they might see as a difficult conversation. But in being nice, they're actually being unkind.
Absolutely. The favourite person I ever worked for, managing director of an agency in London, she was hard. But my God, she made us all step up. And I really value her for that. She was really difficult to impress. But you knew when you got that positive feedback from her, you'd done a good job. And she wasn't going to sugarcoat anything. And it's like, great, I'm learning here. Thank you. I don't want to, someone just to be a yes person to go, that's all right. I don't want to be just all right. Hyperachiever coming out of me. I want to push it. But the person that makes you better or helps you to become better is the person that you're really going to value in your career, not the one that let you get away with all the stuff and didn't really help you develop at all.
So everything you're talking about up until now sounds great. How does this translate into success with clients?
It's really high value when you can have these kind of conversations with clients. So the retrospective's relatively easy. If you've done a huge project, it's gone well, it's not gone well, whatever status it's at, but it's been delivered, and you do a retrospective internally, why not take that to the client and do a retrospective with the client? Because you're going to get things out of the retrospective you may not have all understood, because we all see the world differently. There are things, points of view and perspectives that will really help you do things better next time. Let's share that with the client. Ideally, they can do the retrospective individually and we combine them, or we do it together from the start. It's fascinating what can come out of that and how different people view things, and then how you are talked about as an agency in the client's business going forward, because there aren't any Chinese whispers going on. You've got all the stuff out, but it takes someone who's got confidence to have the hard conversations and know there may be hard conversations coming up and wanting to solve them, going in with that growth mindset and believing in the process, that to talk about this stuff will help with the learning and development going forward collectively with the client. So this kind of stuff can make the relationship so much stronger. I've also done the analysis in terms of working style with clients, and they find it fascinating. They work it in their teams, and often they go on and take it further into their business, because they're humans too. As I say, we're not robots yet. If we can bring some more human insight into what we do, as well as all the clever stuff we do with marketing and anything else we're doing from an agency point of view, we can have a better, deeper connection. And there's a brilliant survey by Up to the Light about what clients think. And a lot of us are thinking about the relationship we have with each other way more than the work. And clients will often put business out to other agencies because of the relationship. That's not new news, but let's think about that. What can we do about that? We are people. We can work on relationships. So let's think about how we can bring some of this human insight into our conversation with clients and make it actionable.
Yeah, it's a great point there at the end, because ultimately most agencies are delivering pretty similar high quality work. And the differentiator can be the closeness of the relationship. And if you understand your client's working style, you can communicate in a way that's going to work for them and that's going to make them feel very positive.
And often a problem client the relationship can be completely turned around if you go and understand why they may be seen as a problem. Because you just may have people that are very different working styles working together, and it's causing a clash. You get under the skin of that, you can turn it around pretty quickly if the client will give you the credence to do so.
Now, Nikki, I'm going to change the topic, because it would be criminal of me if I don't get you to talk a little bit about your books. So you've written 2 wonderful best-selling books, Super Engaged and Bebop, Better Business on Purpose. I know some of the things that you've spoken about today are in the book. What are some of the other key themes in the book which you haven't yet talked about today to help to create that high-performing team?
So in Super Engaged, there's the Propellernet manifesto at the end, and the manifesto ideas can apply to many businesses. The biggie is know why you exist beyond making money. We've talked about the vision, but that's really important for people, because money is fuel. And there's a brilliant Simon Sinek 3-minute clip, if you just Google it, it's on YouTube, about why money is fuel. Every business needs fuel to keep going, but that's not the only reason to be in business. It's like having a car. You don't just have a car to put fuel in it. You have a car to go places. So know why you exist beyond making money. And akin to that, no matter why you're in business, act like there's no exit. That's really compelling. A lot of agencies are set up because they want to be sold, and more power to you. But you're kind of thinking about the future without focusing on the current state and the present. So if you act like there's no exit, there's no retirement, there's no M&A process, there's no big payout, you may do things that actually add a lot more value to your business, that when you eventually do want to exit, you've got a much better proposition to sell. So No way exists beyond making money and act like there's no exit are two biggies in terms of how you frame, how you think about your business. And they can change your stress levels and your performance pretty quickly. Because if you're constantly gunning for, I've got to sell this thing, I've got to sell this thing, it's a very different position to going, actually, I'm going to exit if there's no exit. Also, know that the quietest people often have the most insightful things to say. I've learned that over the years. I have a lot to say. Sometimes I just need to shut up. And that's why, for me, it was really important to become a qualified coach, to understand how to listen well and ask good questions and understand how other people are thinking and see the world through different eyes. Because sometimes people need to be invited to share their thinking, and often that is the most powerful thinking you're ever going to have in the room. So I would advocate for anybody, if you've got meetings and there's someone who hasn't said anything, you can pretty much guarantee, unless they're texting their mum or whatever, that they're thinking about what's going on in the room, and they'll have something pretty fundamental to say. So in whatever way works for them, invite them to share it. And a biggie, plan to lose your best talent. That can hurt, but we don't have jobs for life anymore, and talented people have choices. Ideally, what you want to get to is those talented people are brand advocates for you and your agency and your business going forward. So wherever they go, they are like a fantastic alumni for you. The big consultancy businesses do this all the time. They recruit grads, want them to go on and do really well. They know they're going to become future clients, so they have a fantastic alumni. Let's take a leaf out of their book. Know that our best talent will go at some point, but also the best ones never really leave you anyway. So treat them well and give them a great send off. There's loads of these in the book. Those are the biggies for me, because the way you think and feel about your business has a huge impact on everybody in it.
Nikki, you've shared so many great things. Let's quickly just look to the future. Tell us what's next for you and the businesses that you work with.
So I'm feeling blessed. I'm loving what I'm doing. It's so joyous to be thanked every day. Sometimes when you run your own business, it can be a bit of a thankless task sometimes, and all the problems that no one else can solve end up on your desk, and that's okay. But after, it can get a little bit challenging. Now I help other people solve those challenges, and I get thanked regularly. That's wonderful. And I can see huge change happening without me being in the room, but I can be there as someone to hold a perspective, an agitator, someone to hold people to account, and enable people to have confidence in the decisions they're making. And because of the approach, because it's coaching led, it all comes from them, and they believe in it and they own their future going forward. So what I'm loving is helping other people navigate the challenges that I used to see, and more challenges beside. So for now, I'm in that kind of purple patch sweet spot of really enjoying the work that I'm doing and having a lovely balance in my life, which I didn't have for many years. And I've learned the hard way that that's actually not the right way for me to go. Having the balance is fantastic. So I want to amplify the agencies that are building the businesses our world of tomorrow needs. And I'm deliberately working with founders that have that kind of approach to going forward.
Brilliant. What a lovely way to finish this conversation. Nikki, you shared so many stories, so many wonderful insights. It's been lovely having you here on the podcast. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been great fun.
You've been listening to Human Powered, the podcast all about creating a high-performing agency or consultancy business. Thanks for tuning in.